Number 1. The Eiffel Tower. Today it stands as the undisputed global symbol of romance and French elegance. Millions flock to see it. But the irony is, this beloved monument was originally built to be nothing more than a temporary pile of ugly scrap metal. It was constructed solely as the entrance arch for the 1889 World's Fair. The city gave Gustave Eiffel a strict, non-negotiable permit the tower would stand for exactly 20 years, and then in 1909 it was legally required to be torn down. During construction, the people of Paris absolutely despised it. A group of famous writers and artists even signed a furious petition calling it a hateful column of bolted sheet metal that would humiliate their beautiful city forever. When the deadline of 1909 approached, the city officials were eager to destroy it. They had the wrecking balls ready. They planned to melt it down and sell the iron for cheap scrap. The tower was days away from death, but Gustave Eiffel was a genius. He knew the only way to save his creation was to make it scientifically useful. He installed a massive radio antenna at the very top and proved it was the best spot in France for long-distance communication. Just a few years later, World War I broke out. That specific antenna intercepted crucial enemy radio messages that helped the French army win the Battle of the Marne. The military realized, if we tear this down, we lose our ears. So the permit was extended indefinitely. A temporary hated exhibit survived by becoming a weapon of war, only to eventually become the most valuable tourist attraction on Earth. Number 2. Daylight saving time. It is that dreaded time of year when the government collectively steals an hour of sleep from us, leaving everyone groggy and confused. But why do we actually do this? It wasn't for farmers, that's a myth. It started in Germany in 1916 during the height of World War I. The German Empire was running critically low on coal and needed every ounce of fuel for their war factories. The logic was cold and simple. If we force civilians to wake up an hour earlier, they will use natural sunlight in the evening instead of turning on electric lamps. Less electricity means more coal for the army. Seeing this, the British and Americans thought, that's actually a smart way to hoard resources. So they copied the enemy. It spread globally strictly as a temporary emergency measure to support the war effort. World War I ended in 1918. The emergency passed. Logic dictates we should have reverted to standard time forever, but bureaucracies are slow and the habit stuck. We just kept doing it. Today, modern studies show it saves almost zero energy. In fact, we often use more electricity for air conditioning in those lighter evenings. Plus, the time shift causes a spike in heart attacks and car crashes every single year. We are literally disrupting the biological clocks of billions of people twice a year to solve a coal shortage for a German Kaiser who has been dead for a century. Number 3, the Hollywood sign. When you see those 9 white letters, you think of cinema fame and blockbusters. But this global icon started its life as something much less glamorous, a spammy billboard. In 1923, a real estate development company wanted to sell expensive plots of land in the desolate hills. They erected a massive wooden sign that read Hollywoodland to advertise the new suburban neighborhood. It was built with cheap telephone poles and sheet metal. The developers only intended for it to stay up for about 18 months, just long enough to sell the houses before tearing it down. But then the Great Depression hit and the developers went broke. The sign was abandoned. For decades, it sat there rotting. The letter H toppled over and the land segment literally collapsed down the hill. By 1949, the city wanted to bulldoze the eyesore. But by then, the film industry had exploded in Los Angeles. The locals realized that the broken sign had accidentally become the identity of the town. They struck a deal. The city would repair it, but on one condition. They removed the land part to stop advertising the housing estate, leaving just Hollywood to represent the district. A temporary rotting advertisement for a failed real estate project managed to fail upwards so hard that it became the most famous landmark in America. Number 4. Internet cookies. We click accept on them a dozen times a day. We know they track us. But they weren't invented by an evil spy agency. They were invented by a guy trying to fix a shopping cart. Back in 1994, the internet had no memory. Every time you clicked a new page, the website forgot who you were. If you put items in a shopping cart and then clicked checkout, the cart would be empty. It was broken. Programmer Lou Montulli wrote a quick script to solve this. He called it a cookie. It was simply a tiny ID card the website gave your browser so it could remember your session while you shopped. It was a temporary functional patch to make e-commerce possible. It was designed to be private and helpful, allowing you to stay logged in and keep your items. But advertisers realized something terrifyingly profitable. If we can tag users to remember their cart, we can also tag them to record every single website they visit. The helpful shopping assistant was weaponized into a global surveillance tool. Third-party cookies began tracking your entire digital life to serve you targeted ads. Lou Montulli's quick fix for a shopping cart accidentally built the foundation of the trillion-dollar surveillance economy. He created a monster by trying to be helpful. Number 5, the Korean DMZ. The demilitarized zone is a 4-kilometer wide strip of land that cuts the Korean peninsula in half. It is the most heavily militarized border in the world, yet it technically shouldn't exist. In 1953, the Korean War reached a stalemate. Both sides agreed to a temporary pause in fighting. They signed an armistice, not a peace treaty, intending to figure out a permanent solution within a few months, but the politics failed. The peace treaty was never signed. Months turned into years and years into decades. Technically, the war never ended. It just took a 70-year break. Because this strip of land is filled with millions of landmines and surrounded by guards, no human has set foot inside it for generations. It is a dead zone for people. But nature loves a vacuum. Without farmers, hunters, or cities, the DMZ accidentally reverted to a primitive wild state. It became an unintentional sanctuary for endangered species that have gone extinct everywhere else. Rare cranes, black bears, and perhaps even tigers now roam freely through the minefields. The mines don't trigger for their light weight. They are safer there than anywhere else. A temporary scar of human hatred became a permanent paradise for nature. It proves that if you just remove humans from the equation, the Earth heals itself instantly. Number 6, the TV dinner. It changed the way families eat forever, replacing the dining table with the sofa. But this cultural shift didn't happen because of a chef's vision, it happened because of a logistical failure. In 1953, the Swanson Company massively overestimated how much turkey Americans would eat for Thanksgiving. They were left with a staggering 260 tons of leftover frozen birds. They had these turkeys stored in refrigerated train cars moving back and forth across the country just to keep them frozen. The cooling was failing. The meat was about to rot. It was a financial disaster waiting to happen. A salesman named Jerry Thomas saw the aluminum trays used for airline food and had a desperate idea. What if we slice the turkey, throw in some cornbread and peas, and sell it as a complete meal you can heat up? To make it appealing, they tied it to the newest technology of the time, the television. They called it the TV dinner and designed the box to look like a TV set. It was meant to be a one-time liquidation of excess stock, but the public went crazy for it. They sold 10 million units in the first year alone. Swanson saved their turkeys, but they accidentally killed the tradition of the family dinner. Convenience won, and the dining room table became a place to pile up laundry. Number 7, the Jeep. It is the grandfather of every SUV on the road today. But this iconic vehicle wasn't carefully crafted over years. It was thrown together in a panic-fueled weekend. In 1940, the U.S. Army watched the war in Europe and realized they had 0 light reconnaissance vehicles. They sent an impossible demand to car makers: design and build a working prototype in just 49 days. Major car companies laughed and said no, but a tiny struggling company called Bantam accepted. Their engineers worked around the clock and literally designed the vehicle in just 2 days. The design was brutally simple because it had to be. Flat panels, no curves, no doors, no roof. It was built to be a disposable tool of war, cheap to make, easy to fix, and expected to be left behind on the battlefield. But the soldiers bonded with it. It was unkillable. It became more than a car. It was their trusty horse. Eisenhower later said it was one of the 3 weapons that won the war. When the war ended, the disposable cars didn't die. Soldiers bought surplus Jeeps and brought them to the suburbs. They loved the utility. A vehicle designed in 48 hours to fight Nazis became a permanent lifestyle brand. It proves that if you build something that actually works, people will refuse to let it go. Number 8, the TSA. We have all stood in that line, taking off shoes, removing belts, throwing away water. It feels like an ancient ritual, but it is actually a relatively new temporary experiment that never ended. Before 2001, airport security was private and relaxed. You could keep your shoes on, you could bring a soda, you could even walk your family right to the gate to wave goodbye. After the tragedy of 9/11, the U.S. government rushed to create the Transportation Security Administration. It was a massive emergency federalization of security intended to address a specific immediate threat level. Then came the shoe bomber in late 2001. He failed, but the TSA reacted by making everyone take off their shoes. It was supposed to be a temporary check. Decades later, we are still barefoot. Then came the liquid plot in 2006. Suddenly, all liquids were banned. Temporary high alert became permanent procedure. The agency swelled to over 50,000 employees. It is often called security theater. Experts argue that many of these rules add zero actual safety but exist to make the public feel like something is being done. We traded our freedom and dignity for a sense of safety during a crisis, and the government simply never offered to trade it back. Number 9. The QWERTY keyboard. Look at the device you are using right now. The layout of the keys makes absolutely no logical sense. The most used letters are scattered in hard-to-reach places. Why? To understand this, we have to go back to 1873. The first mechanical typewriters had a flaw. If a typist hit adjacent keys too quickly, the metal arms would swing up, crash into each other, and jam the machine. The inventor, Christopher Sholes, realized he needed to stop people from typing so fast. He deliberately scrambled the alphabet to separate common letter pairs, forcing the typist to slow down physically. It worked. QWERTY was designed as a bottleneck. It was a mechanical patch to solve a mechanical limitation of the 19th century. Fast forward to today. Typewriters are extinct. We use touchscreens and lasers. There are no metal arms to jam. The physical limitation is gone. We actually have much faster, more ergonomic layouts like Dvorak. But because everyone learned on QWERTY, nobody wants to switch. The inertia of habit is too strong. So we are all stuck forever using a layout designed to make us inefficient simply because we are too lazy to learn a better way. Number 10. The WinRAR trial. This is the most famous temporary period in history. For decades, WinRAR has greeted us with a pop-up, "Your 40-day trial has expired. Please buy a license." And for decades, millions of us have simply clicked the little close button and kept using it. It never locks you out. It never deletes your files. It simply continues to ask you politely every single time you open it, repeating this request for all eternity. People often wonder, is the developer stupid? Did they forget to write the code that locks the software? Why give it away for free while pretending to charge for it? It is actually a brilliant psychological strategy. By allowing regular users to pirate it indefinitely, WinRAR became the default compression tool for the entire planet. Nobody uses anything else because WinRAR is always free. But here is the catch. Businesses cannot pirate software. They fear lawsuits. So while you use it for free, companies pay millions for corporate licenses because it's the software all their employees already know how to use. WinRAR isn't a failed trial. It's the most successful honor system in existence. They are the polite drug dealers of the software world. The first hit is free forever. So we have learned that temporary things often become permanent. Let's make sure your subscription to this channel follows that same rule. Smash that button to make our connection permanent, and I will see you in the next video.